I believe we are in one of the greatest times to be alive for hyper-curious people who are willing to engage with other people online, share their ideas, and connect with others. I call this the great creator arbitrage opportunity. This is a tremendous opportunity. But what is the cost? The cost is pretty simple. Most people who enter these creator worlds need to pay some sort of status tax. They need to give up prestige from their old career path or successes and embrace a beginner's mind. The role of a creator, any creative person at the beginning of a path, is one who doesn't know where they're headed, doesn't know what they're doing, and doesn't really have a lot of confidence or skill in terms of actually creating. But if people are able to commit to that path, I believe it is the greatest time to be alive for those kind of people who have that fire burning inside them and feel the need to share their ideas, explore ideas, and connect with other people who love ideas too. I want to explore this idea today and dive into what I think is one of the most unique and interesting opportunities today. The first thing you need to do to explore a path like this is to assess your own scripts and stories about what you are supposed to be doing. In my book, The Pathless Path, I call the path that many people are on the default path. The default path is not a fixed story, it's the story we absorb from culture, our family, society, growing up. It's the story that we say to ourselves, we need to do these things to be seen as a serious and successful person as an adult. The key to unlocking your own potential is first assessing whether the story you're telling yourself in your head matches what you're actually wired to do, what engages you, what lights you up. Robert Anton Wilson had another name for these. He called them reality tunnels. He said that we use these as a model and abstraction, which is comforting when we do not know what to do about the muddle of existential reality or ordinary experience. He argued that what most of us do when we experience disconnects between our lived experience and our reality tunnel that we're trying to map it to is that we conform even more closely to what we think we're supposed to do. So we smooth out the edges of our unique personalities, our creative weirdness, the things we should be leaning into. Step 1, you need to assess your reality tunnel. Figure out which one you're playing in. See if you have to escape or there are degrees of freedom where you can explore and have a little more curiosity. Step 2 is find another story. My book, The Pathless Path, is an attempt at creating a meta story, a story you can cling onto that says it's an alternative to the default path, it's not a prescribed path, it's not one that can be mapped, but it's a meta story that you can say, yeah, I'm on a pathless path. I'm not supposed to know where I'm going. I'm not supposed to know how it ends. There is no promotion or CEO role at the end of a line of a linear trajectory through life. There are only discoveries to be made and continued learnings along the way. A pathless path is really an excuse to say, I'm not sure what my story is, and I hope people remix this story and come up with their own versions and remixes of it. Step 3 is to admit you have dreams. Many people go through life burying their dreams. All of us have that voice deep inside of us that tells us, you should do this. Whenever we feel afraid, that's often a sign that we actually want to do something. Leaning into those dreams, even in a minor way, is a powerful thing. I posted this graphic showing that we do all these hard things in school, like study calculus, and then we get jobs where we're doing Excel spreadsheets. In that gap is what I call the inspiration deficit. Contrary to what you'll read in news headlines today, people want to be challenged, they want to be inspired, they want to do hard things. But when they come face to face in the job container with bureaucracy, credentialism, endless career paths, they start to doubt their own dreams. They start to doubt that they actually want those things. And I just want to say, remember that you want to be inspired, you want to do hard things, you want to be challenged. You are human. This is what makes us human. Step 4 is to imagine counterfactuals. I've talked to so many people in my podcast, and they often say, I accidentally ended up on this path and it's far beyond my dreams. Here's what Austin Church said in an interview I did with him.
Something you just said, which is, I think people think that label entrepreneur, or even the idea of being your own boss, it's like predetermined. It's something you're born with and you have, or you don't, right? And I think that's not true. I don't think anybody comes out of the womb already being good at business. I think it comes down to, well, what motivates you and what values do you have? Your motivations and your values can change over time. And for me, once I got a taste of setting my own hours, once I got a taste of the autonomy and flexibility, I think I was hooked. I know I was hooked.
And Laura LeCompte similarly ended up on a path she could not have planned. She tried to become a startup founder after leaving Google. After all, that's supposed to be what you do after leaving tech. But it wasn't for her. As she says,
I started a company, I found a co-founder, and I was also on that path for a little while before realizing that it wasn't for me.
She freelanced for a bit, she experimented, and in that space that opened up, she had a little more flexibility and less pressure to be something like a startup founder. She started writing, she started creating.
Because it was exactly that for me. And it was the first time in my entire life that I figured that there was a way for me to make money, not have to worry about the financial side of things without linking my whole identity to work.
She ended up stumbling into building a community online and even deciding to go get a PhD in neuroscience, trying to make it all work on a weird path that couldn't be mapped. Step 5 is you do need that space. Like Anne-Laure Lecomte, you need that space. You need the space to dream, to think, to imagine different possibilities. One of the challenges for me on my previous path was that I was surrounded by suits. I was surrounded by people who were firmly on the default path, who thought that their only path in the future was continuing to do what they were doing. I didn't have counter examples. I didn't have alternative scripts I could look at and say, oh, that might be interesting. That might be something I could do. So you need to create space. And the most powerful thing I've discovered is that you can just find this in a sabbatical. You don't need to quit your job. What I tell people is you need a 1 to 3 month break from worker mode. This is disconnecting from the mode that says, I need to do this for that. I am connecting with people to help me in my career. I am working on this to get likes. I am working on this to grow something. No, you need to get in touch with yourself. Remind yourself of forgotten hobbies from childhood and start remembering the things that brought you alive. Maybe stumbling upon things like writing, creating things, doing art, volunteering, gardening. All these things I've heard from so many people when they just create some space in their life and they start to remember who they are. Some people even go back to their jobs and they're quite happy doing it. It's just they now know what matters to them and what their boundaries are. So my challenge to you, find 3 months in the almost 500 months we're supposed to work in adulthood. 3 months out of 500. Create that space for your life. Create that space in your life. I recommend doing it after 30 years of age, but if you prioritize it up there with like getting married and having a big wedding, having kids and taking time off with kids and traveling, I really think most people can pull this off. 3 months, that's all you need to pull off in your entire adulthood. Just take a break from worker mode and you will discover the things that will drive you forward. Step 6, you have to pay the status tax. Unfortunately, it's still hard, no matter how successful you are, to be on a path like mine, to be a solo creator, to create online. Here's an interesting clip with Ali Abdaal, who was already succeeding when he took a year off from medicine. But he talked to me about how hard it would be on his family that he was actually leaving medicine. His success in the creator world was not legible to them.
Question. I think like the correct answer is no. My mom and grandma and my family obviously wouldn't love me less because they love me as a human being and a family, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But still, they probably would think less of me for leaving medicine to become a full-time YouTuber if that was what was going to happen.
Step 7, reframe ambition. When I first left my path, I was afraid of ambition. I paired ambition with this idea that you needed to suffer in the present for a payoff in the future. But what I've discovered after finding work I actually like doing is that you can sort of refactor, transfigure that kind of ambition into a different kind of ambition. You can shift it from legible ambition to illegible ambition. Legible ambition is a story that your parents can tell their friends. It makes sense, it gives you credibility, it gives you status. Illegible ambition is hard to explain to anyone, let alone yourself. You may not understand what's driving you. And it's hard to understand, but people really do feel this way and feel a sense of connectedness. It's sort of an infinite excitement towards wanting to do things over the long term. I love how David Perel describes this. He talked about this in an interview with Danny Miranda and called it hearts on fire.
The mercenaries you can find, they got the skills, they know how to think through things, how to get things done, but they don't have hearts on fire, which is ultimately the scarce resource.
I love this. If we know that hearts on fire exists, why don't you want to find it? Creative work, working online, gives you the space and the autonomy to do this kind of work on your own terms for the first time in history. This is one of the greatest opportunities we're ever going to get. What a time to be alive, right? The best way to find these things is to aim at that state of being. Too many people think they need to find their thing, be successful, make money, find a niche. But what I say is find a mode, don't find a niche. You need to aim at trying to experience that hearts on fire aliveness, that connectedness to your work. I can vouch too that this exists. This is what I experience when I write. I love writing. The writing is sort of a portal to a different way of being, a deep connected state when I feel energized, excited, and alive. You can do this by experimenting. So experiment with many different types of work. And this is all about disconnecting from doing things for other things. You need to just try a bunch of stuff. Oftentimes this takes people a few years. But if people really do commit to a path like this, I've seen over and over again that people are able to find this state, lock in, and then ambition is really just a measure of how fast do you want to go. Do you want to accomplish goals over 30 years or 1 year? It's totally different from working in a job because you don't need to cash in because you're not compromising anything. You've found things you can commit to. You can design around liking work rather than designing for escaping work. Ultimately, sharing things online is good. We just have default biases against sharing online because we see the most outrageous, the most scammy, and the loudest stuff in our faces. The answer to this is not to reject this, it's to get in the arena and start sharing in a positive way. If you have hesitancy about sharing online, I have good news for you. All the people sharing online now, most of them do not have hesitancy. When I first started, I was terrified to share my ideas. I thought, what will people say? What will people think? Here's the thing. At the beginning, it's crickets. Nobody says anything. But slowly, people did start to reach out. And I made friends. I connected with people. People told me to keep going. And it was exciting. It was exciting to find my small, unique, curious, weird tribe of people who want to have deeper conversations about work. I love this graphic from my friend Jeremy Finch, and it shows this. It shows we need more of these people who are hesitant to share because you have things worth sharing. You have positive visions. You have good stances about how not to be scammy, how not to be hustly on the internet. So please share. We need you. It will make the entire ecosystem better. And in a powerful way, creating is a way to channel a different relationship with the online world. Whether we want it or not, we are in an online world. We are deeply saturated with memes that are generated from the internet, even if we're not spending time online. The greatest way to deal with this is to create our own thing. Why? As Rebecca Solnit says, as a writer, you withdraw and disconnect yourself from the world in order to connect to it in the far-reaching way that is other people elsewhere reading the words that came together in this contemplative state. Creating online in a counterintuitive way is actually a way to disengage with the digital world and then engage in it in a more intentional and positive way. Step 8 is commit to the path, but know that you don't need to speed run it. Being on a self-employed path is often about finding your footing, finding your confidence again, reconnecting with yourself. Oftentimes this takes years. I see over and over again people rush into finding their thing, wanting to build a business, wanting to be super successful right away. It's great to make money and probably pragmatic at the beginning, but you need to give your time to explore, to be patient, to find your footing and find the things you actually want to commit to. You don't want to commit to the wrong things too early. And then once you've found that footing, I've seen over and over again, many solopreneurs, self-employed creators, independent freelancers start scaling up their ambitions. I'm still working as a company of one, but I could easily scale this up if I wanted to. I see the paths and the possibilities now, and I know that I could do it without undermining my own creativity and possibly burning myself out. These are the possibilities that exist if you commit to a path like this. Step 9, this window is going to close soon. So get going now. Start creating, start sharing these ideas. This opportunity, this disconnect between the tax you need to pay and the opportunities to improve your life and do work you love is closing. More and more people are seeing the opportunity. You have people like this college student at MIT releasing directly an incredible documentary right to YouTube. You have people like Mr. Beast who now, instead of being a one-man show, are building these massive enterprises. These are the companies of the future. These are the companies that are going to expand into many other things. By engaging in the creator economy, creating online, contributing to this broader ecosystem of ideas, you are also helping to create the institutions of the future and create the future itself. Step 10, you can learn more about resources and where to get started in the description below. I've also attached the article form of this essay, and leave a comment. I'm here to connect with others too. I want to help you succeed. I want to help people thrive in this new world. We're shifting to a weirder, more uncertain, more unstructured world, but it's also a world with incredible possibility, especially for the hyper-curious weirdos like me who want to create, share online, and create different ways of working and living. If you like this video, you might like my podcast. You can check out some of the episodes here. And if you like this channel, you can subscribe. Thanks for the support.